Hey, what's good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count and the return of UFC fight picks, this time for UFC 299, O'MALLEY versus Vera. This card is absolutely stacked, and I certainly cannot wait for it. It's going down this weekend, Sunday, March 10th, or Saturday, March 9th, depending on where you are. 3 a.m. start time. It's going to be another late one for the boys here in the UK. But it's definitely one which should be worth it. Before we get into my picks, right, guys, if you do enjoy today's video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. But more importantly, leave a comment. Let me know your picks in the comments down below. It's always great to see where you guys are leaning on these ones. We're going to kick things off with the main event, O'MALLEY and Marlon Vera. I think this is an important fight for O'MALLEY. I think in terms of his career, he could do with a real definitive finish in this fight, especially if he wants to do what he's setting himself up for. You know, he's talking about the Ilya Taporia match potentially at 145, and I think in order for him to hold up this division, he's got to get that hype behind him, and I think he's only going to get that by a spectacular knockout, and I just don't see that coming in this fight. I think Vera is obviously a very grizzled vet, and he's someone who is defensively very responsible, but also has an absolute rock solid chin on him. He's never been stopped inside the octagon, and in his entire career, saying that. The first fight was interesting to say the least. Vera landing a leg kick, which just rendered O'MALLEY one-legged for the entire first round, and he was able to take him down late on in the round and finish him from inside the guard. And for me, although O'MALLEY kind of denies it as a defeat, I think Vera can take a lot of positives from that. I think there's areas in this fight where he can have a slight advantage and potentially make O'MALLEY halt towards the end. I think to beat O'MALLEY, I don't think you're going to be doing it while he's fresh, unless you get a lucky shot of some sort. I think when he's fresh, he's just too quick, and the way he moves inside the octagon, he's too much for a lot of these bantamweights. But for me, I think if Vera can force O'MALLEY to work early on, can he get inside the clinch? Can he work him up against the octagon? Can he maybe find a takedown? Force O'MALLEY to use explosive actions to get back up to his feet. I think that's something which really could help him in this fight. I think early on, I don't think you're going to be able to find a finish, but I think late on in rounds 4 and 5, maybe you can. I don't think we're going to see that though. I think Vera has always been a slow starter inside the octagon, and I don't really see that changing. I think he sometimes takes too long to get inside, well, to get into rhythm. But when he does, he's obviously an excellent fighter. I think we see O'MALLEY take the first few rounds probably. I wouldn't say easily, but I think he's just going to be the guy doing the cleaner work. I think on the outside, it's going to be hard for Vera to cut off the octagon and find him. But if he can, it's going to be an interesting matchup to say the least. I'm actually going to go with O'MALLEY to get a decision here. I don't think the finish is going to be there. I don't think we're going to see him moving up to fight Ilya Taporia next. I think Vera's going to come on late. I just think it's going to be too little, too late for Vera. And it's going to be unfortunate because I'd love to see him win this fight. It's going to be hard for him to get to another title fight after this. The bantamweight division is probably the most stacked inside MMA, and it has been for a very long time. And in combat sports in general, I think you look at boxing around that 130, 135 mark, just absolutely stacked. So, I'm hoping Vera can pull one out and prove me wrong, but I just don't see it happening. Next up, we have the co-main event: Dustin Poirier taking on Benoit Saint Denis, as I like to call him. It's an interesting matchup, right? I think Saint Denis got a lot of hype over him, especially after that last finish over Frivola. Frivola is a guy who comes out early and really puts it on people, and it was the absolute opposite way. He turned him into the nail, and Saint Denis was definitely the hammer in that matchup. But in terms of his career so far inside the UFC, obviously it was a disappointing start against Dos Anjos. But since then, he's just been on absolute roll. I think the finish over Moises and Bonfim are actually really impressive. Moises was a guy who was touting to really come on inside the UFC lightweight division, but Sandini kind of put a stop to that last year. And the Bonfim one, once again, I think that was a really impressive finish, the submission in that one. But I think Dustin Poirier, I mean, just look at this, guys. Look at what he's done inside the octagon. I know he's not got the best record, obviously. I remember this Johnson fight very, very well. And the Bobby Green one before that. He's just had so many fights inside the octagon, and I think that counts for something. Yes, he's coming off a knockout defeat against Gaethje in the second round. Sorry, via head kick, and Saint Denis won his last fight by head kick. But I don't think in this case, 1+1 = 2. I think it's a very difficult matchup, and I'm surprised that Dustin Poirier is the underdog heading into this one. I think Poirier forces Saint Denis kind of fall into his game. I think, can he get him into boxing range? And if he can, even though I think Saint Denis the quicker and the more explosive fighter, I just see Poirier beating the shit out of him, especially late on in this fight. And I really do rate Saint Denis. Obviously, French Special Forces now of the Octagon sensation. But for me, Dustin Poirier, experience counts for a lot, and I don't think it's time for the passing of the guard just yet. In a couple years' time, definitely going Saint Denis, but right now, I just don't think it's time. I think Poirier gets this one done, and it moves us on to one of my favorite fights on the card. Kevin Holland introduces MVP to the octagon, and it's about damn time. Been waiting for this guy to come over for so long. MVP Michael Venom Page, an absolutely electric fighter. Obviously, he was supplying his trade over in Bellator, and he's done a few other things as well. Obviously boxing, and he also fought Mike Perry in a loss in BKFC in an absolutely wild fight. Uh, but Venom Page coming into the octagon is exciting. For me, there is a little bit. I guess I do have this thing where I look at him and he has the Jesse Lingard effect, where everyone thinks he's young. He's not. He's 36. In terms of the tail of the tape, it is an interesting one. Both 6'3". It's going to be Holland who has the reach advantage. However, he's going to have a reach advantage of 2 inches. I know it doesn't say on here, but I've wrote it down in my notes. And for me, it's an interesting matchup. I think it's one which is kind of perfect for Venom Page to come into. He's coming in against someone who likes to strike on the feet, and I think someone he can force into his traps. I don't think Holland is a striker at the level of Venom Page and some of the fighters that he's fought, and I see him winning this one. Venom Page isn't this myth, though. He can be beaten. We've seen that in the Storley fight recently. It was a split decision, but Storley was able to have great success in terms of the wrestling. And we saw him got KO'd by Lima back, feels like ages ago now, but obviously he was able to avenge that defeat in a decision victory. However, I just don't think Holland's got the necessary skills to really cause problems for MVP. I think we see an MVP finish here. I don't know. Is it going to happen early? I think it's written in the stars for it to happen early for him to just burst onto the scene with a first round knockout via some sort of flying knee. Um, but yeah, I think if Holland could get this fight to the ground, it could be very interesting. But I just don't think he has the skills to do that. So I'm going to go with Page via first round knockout. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm very hyped to see MVP in the octagon. Moving on to Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I guess this one is so close for me. I don't know how to pick it. Number 4 against number 11, but it's an interesting matchup in terms of the boxing. I just think Jack Della Maddalena's got too much in the hands for Gilbert Burns. I think he's also too, I guess you could say, responsible. I think he's, a very smart fighter who's going to fight behind an educated jab, going to keep the distance, and, he's going to look to chew up Gilbert on the feet. I think Gilbert's obviously got tremendous, sort of power in his hands, and if he can land, he can obviously cause problems. And if he can create some sort of, I guess, some sort of scramble of some sort where he can catch Jack Della Maddalena in some sort of submission and get this fight to the ground, I have him, clearly the favorite there. But for me, I just see Jack fighting behind the jab and picking them apart. I don't think Gilbert Burns has impressed me too much since the loss to Hamzat Chimaev. Obviously, he got a win over over Magny via submission. That was a nice one, to be fair. And he beat Masvidal by unanimous decision. But the loss to Bilal was an unfortunate one. Obviously, he had the injury with the arm. But I just feel like this is two fighters in completely different stages of their career. Looking at Madalena, obviously, after this Brown fight, it felt like sky was the limit. He was brought down to earth a little bit in the Hafez fight. It was an impressive victory despite the split decision though for him against Kevin Holland. I just think this is an interesting matchup. It's not one which is probably gonna catch the attention of too many casuals, but I think it's an important matchup for the division and could be another one of those passing of the torch. We move on. I'm gonna actually go with Jack Della Maddalena by decision now. That's gonna be my pick. Um, Piotr Jan taking on Song Yadong, and Jesus, this is an important fight for Piotr Jan. You know, I still look at him as one of the best fighters in the division, and certainly still has the ability to be one of the top pound for pound fighters. Obviously, coming off some really bad losses, and some of them are so close as well. You look at the Sterling loss, just really could have got that. It was just unfortunate, I guess, and unfortunate he had to do the rematch in the first place. It was his fault for landing the illegal knee. Since then, he's lost to O'Malley in a very close fight, and like I said, I did score for O'Malley, but I could see you giving it either way, really. It was a super close fight, and then after that, he just came up against Marab, who was able to just absolutely dismantle him, and I've never seen him look as bad, and I just think that's what Marab does. He makes people look bad. I think he's probably the uncrowned champ in this division. But Song Yadong, he's coming into this one, obviously best name inside the UFC, and for me, I think the fact that this is a 3 round fight definitely favors him. I think on the feet, we've seen Pierre Yan early on. He likes to get his reads. He doesn't really get too active early. He likes to stay behind that high guard and be defensively responsible. And I think that gives Song Yadong a chance to really get the judges' eyes on him. Can he land a couple of really nice looking shots? And, take round one. I think that's definitely one of the things I can see happening. I think Song probably does take round one. And then it's, can he get one of the last two? And for me, that's definitely a possibility with the power that he has in his hands and, the kind of flashy sort of boxing style that he has. I think there's a big chance that he's going to win this fight. He is the underdog, and I'm going to have to pick Peter Yan because of how good he is. I just think inside rounds 2 and 3, he probably does pick up the pace. He's so good with the guard and the way he blocks shots, able to land. He's obviously got a few throws as well if he wants to get this fight to the ground. I think there you'd have a big advantage on top of Yadong. And sorry, that makes me laugh. But it's a great matchup, and it's a crucial one because if Yan loses this, could he be cut from the UFC? In which case, he could be one of the best fighters just to be cut, because he's so good. So good. Moves us on to the prelims. Only going to talk about a couple of these, the ones that really interest me. Curtis Blaze versus Jelton Almeida is super interesting. It's a pick 'em right now, and I think that's because styles make fights. Obviously both from kind of different trajectories in their career. Almeida, his last win over Derek Lewis wasn't the most spectacular, but before that, he was able to run through absolutely everyone. And Curtis Blades, is he kind of like the kryptonite to Almeida? Obviously, an absolute brilliant wrestler. And on the feet, very underrated. I think what happens to him against some of these big punches is he gets very, I guess you could say, anxious in a way. And, it's led to him being knocked out a few times. You look at the Francis fight, the Derek Lewis one. But for me, I think he's got the better hands of the two here. I think he's got a real good shot to fight behind the jab and kind of force Almeida into some desperate shots in which he can capitalize and end up in top position. It's a really intriguing matchup. I think Almeida is destined for a championship one day, whether that's at heavyweight or light heavyweight, as we've seen he can make both. I'm surprised he isn't going down the light heavyweight path first before he moves up to heavyweight, but he's starting at heavyweight right now. It's so hard to pick. I'm gonna go Blades. I just think on the feet he's got the better tools. I think his wrestling can nullify Jelton Almeida. I could be wrong, completely wrong, but I'm just going to go for Curtis Blades here. I'm not too fussed about this fight. It doesn't intrigue me. I think Caitlin Shakagian is the woman that, if you want to be an elite fighter in the women's flyweight division, you got to get past her. She's always kind of been that fighter. She's not quite elite, but she's very good. And it's an interesting fight, but I'm not too interested. Matthias Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos, on the other hand. Very interesting fight. I really like the look of this one. I think Gamrot's ability to really, overwhelm people with his onslaught of just constant wrestling, and with his hands as well, he's not too bad. I think he's going to give Dos Anjos problems. I think this is the sort of matchup which has killed Dos Anjos over the years. And I think it's going to be a rough night for the Brazilian. I'm going Mateus Gamrot via decision. Pedro Munoz versus Kylan Murray. Kylan Murray. What am I on about? Kylan Phillips. A great matchup. Kyler Phillips, very underrated inside the bantamweight division. Super nasty striking. Pedro Munoz, on the other hand, is a guy with elite grappling, spectacular power on the feet. I think he gives problems to Phillips. Honestly, I think for Phillips to win, he's got to make this fight look pretty, and it's definitely hard to do that against Pedro Munoz. I think Sean O'Malley was doing that up until the eye poke. But yeah, this is a really good fight. I'm gonna go with the underdog here. I'm gonna go with Munoz by decision. Phillips definitely has the ability to take this one, but I'm gonna go with the vet. In the early prelims, this one catches my eye. Michel Pereira taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. But I remember when Michael first joined UFC, and he showed some really good signs. I think around that time it was like Yoko and those lot in the middleweight division. Now he's taken on Pereira, who is just one of the most like must watch fighters in terms of how unique he is. I think this is going to be an interesting one in how it plays out. I think Pereira's got to be careful because from the southpaw stance, I think Michael's really good and his boxing's really clean. It's going to be a good fight. I'm going to go Pereira by knockout. And that's the end of my fight picks, guys. Let me know your picks in the comment section down below. We are going to be coming back for UFC 300, and we also have other videos lined up for the channel before then. And thank you guys for watching. If you do enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Leave your picks in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care, and I'll be back.